Most people who come to me are already on melatonin. And in almost every case, one of the first things we do is figure out whether they actually need it to fix their sleep. Here's what usually happens: someone starts taking melatonin because sleep feels off. Maybe they can't fall asleep easily. Maybe someone told them it was natural, safe, and a reasonable step. And at some point, months or years later, they're still taking it, still not sure whether it's doing anything, and they're not sure how to figure that out. That uncertainty makes sense. It comes from how melatonin is usually presented as a supplement with standard dosing instructions, as though it works the same way for everyone. The reality is more individual than that, and the gap between how people take it and how their body uses it tends to be where the confusion lives. In this video, I will walk you through the three things that change the picture when it comes to whether melatonin makes sense for you, including the one that makes it difficult to evaluate whether it's doing anything at all. And at the end, I'll tell you the situations where I do suggest it, and they're fewer than many people expect. Here's the first point: many people aren't deficient in the way they think. Let's start with the assumption most people bring to melatonin, that their sleep is poor because their melatonin is low. In most healthy adults, that doesn't hold up. Melatonin deficiency as the primary driver of sleep problems is less common than you might think. In healthy adults, melatonin production tends to be intact. Production can be affected by light exposure and lifestyle factors, but the idea that most adults with sleep complaints cannot produce melatonin even when their lighting and environmental factors have been addressed is not well supported in the research or in real life. There's also a common idea that aging automatically reduces melatonin. This also overstates what the research shows. Changes can happen with age, but it's not a requirement, and it's not in everyone. There are 70-year-olds that produce more melatonin than 30-year-olds. And so the picture is much more nuanced than you get older, your melatonin drops, you must take a supplement in order to sleep well. For many adults, the ability to produce melatonin isn't the issue. This matters because if melatonin deficiency isn't what's driving your sleep problems, adding melatonin is unlikely to address them. And continuing to take it long term can make it harder to identify what is driving them. And this is a point I'll come back to. The second point, the timing problem. Even when melatonin is relevant, people are taking it at the wrong time for them. There is a concept in chronobiology, the study of biological circadian timing, called your dim light melatonin onset, your DLMO. Your DLMO is the point in the evening when your body naturally begins releasing melatonin under low light conditions. It marks the drop in core body temperature and the onset of sleepiness that follows. Now, here's the part that standard guidance often doesn't account for. DLMO varies widely between individuals, even among people who want to fall asleep at the same time. There's variation in when their bodies start producing melatonin. The standard advice: take melatonin 30 to 60 minutes before your target bedtime, is actually usually too early for many people. In general, if your natural DLMO is earlier than when you take it, you're taking it too late. If it's later, you're taking it too early. This also depends on whether you're trying to fall asleep earlier than your habitual bedtime or stay at your habitual bedtime. The timing matters just as much as, if not more than, the dose. Even in rare case of when someone is truly capable of producing melatonin, even under optimal environmental conditions, the timing of melatonin needs to account for the individual's DLMO and whether they are wanting to advance, delay, or keep their normal sleep time. This is why two people taking melatonin at the same time can have different outcomes. Someone whose DLMO falls at 8 p.m. and someone whose DLMO falls at 10 p.m. are working with different internal clocks, and the same dosing time will land in a different part of each person's cycle. The body's timing isn't standardized, and without knowing your DLMO, the standard guidance is a rough estimate at best. This brings me to the third point that's often missed: what melatonin does well versus what it doesn't. Melatonin is a circadian timing hormone. It's most useful when the problem is one of timing, when you need to adjust when your body wants to fall asleep or reset your body clock after crossing time zones. Jet lag is a textbook case. You're asking your circadian rhythm to adjust, and melatonin can support that adjustment. When melatonin is less useful is for staying asleep or sleep continuity. If your primary issue is waking in the middle of the night and having difficulty falling back asleep, what we call wake after sleep onset, that points to more sleep maintenance than circadian timing, and the evidence for melatonin reducing wake after sleep onset is limited. This is an important distinction for a lot of people. Many individuals started melatonin hoping it would help them stay asleep. If that's been the goal, it helps to ask whether the tool matches the problem. So, what if you have been taking melatonin for months and years and it hasn't noticeably improved your sleep? Is staying on melatonin long term a problem? By the way, if this helped, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss my next videos with more sleep insights that go beyond sleep hygiene. Now back to the video. There's one more piece that comes up. When someone has been taking melatonin for a long time, especially at typical supplement doses, it becomes difficult to see what their sleep looks like underneath it. You can't get an accurate picture when an exogenous hormone, a hormone you're adding from the outside, is in the mix. In practice, this means that when someone comes in on long-term melatonin and their sleep problems remain unresolved, one of the first steps we take is careful reduction. The reason is to get an unobstructed view of what their sleep is doing before we determine what to address. Getting that baseline is informative. It gives you information that changes the direction of the conversation. So, where does this leave you practically? Here are 3 things for you to do if you've been on melatonin for months and years and you are still struggling with sleep. The first thing to do is to get specific about what problem you're trying to solve. Is the issue falling asleep, or is it staying asleep once you're there? Melatonin has more utility for the former than the latter. If your primary issue is staying asleep, that distinction matters a lot for what you look at next. Second, if you've been taking melatonin for months and years without consistent improvement in your sleep, and you are still unsure whether it's making a difference, discuss with a specialist whether a reduction would make sense for you to help you improve your sleep with attention to what changes and what doesn't. That insight is useful for you in improving your sleep regardless of what direction you go. And third, if you're considering starting melatonin, understand that the standard dosing time may not align with your individual physiology. Your dim light melatonin onset, the point when your body expects to start producing melatonin, varies between people for the same sleep time, and that the standard 30 to 60 minutes before target bedtime actually does not fit most people, although it could be appropriate for a small subset. Starting with a lower dose and paying attention to what changes or doesn't gives you more useful information. Melatonin isn't a bad tool. In the right context, circadian timing issues, dosing and timing that reflects your individual physiology it can be a useful sleep tool. Understanding how your body uses this hormone, when it needs it, what it's designed to support, can move you out of trial and error. And it takes you from let me try this and see to I understand what I'm testing and what I'm looking for. That's a different starting point, and it tends to lead to more useful answers in your journey to improve your sleep. By the way, if you're struggling with staying asleep, there's three factors most people who've already addressed their sleep hygiene and sleep environment haven't typically considered. I cover what they are, what you can look at, and how you can begin to address them so you can improve your sleep. I'll link to that video right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.